Titiksha literally means the ability to endure, the ability to put up with unpleasant things, the pairs of opposites in life. You have to learn that everybody has painful situations in life. Nobody can be exempt from painful situations. And this is what this value talks about, the pairs of opposites. Shita or Ushna. So physically also we have, times when our health is 100%. There are times when our health is not so good, right? Shita, Ushna is heat and cold. So pairs of opposite. If I'm in a very hot country, it's sometimes unbearably hot. We know, summers in India can be unbearable. You can hardly breathe. I lived in Chennai for 3 years. There was only 3 seasons that I saw, which is hot, hotter, hottest. There is nothing apart from those 3 seasons. And, there's a part, especially this time of year, it's called Agni Nakshatram. It just literally burns, when you breathe in, it's like, breathing in fire, so nobody can go out. So this is heat, extreme heat. And you have places extremely cold with this Shita. So here he's mentioned only 2 pairs of opposites, but here we include, with the Adi word he includes, every pair of opposite we have to face in life. Sukha Dukkha is emotionally experienced. So Sukha is this happiness, worldly happiness. We're not talking about Atma, the happiness of the self. We're talking about this Sukha, worldly happiness, and pleasures. There would be more pleasures of the senses, all of that happiness. And Dukkha, which is emotional pain that you have to face. Anything, mental pain, emotional pain that you have to face. This is life, and what do I do with them? So you have to understand, first of all, that every coin has 2 sides. So you cannot have heat without cold. You have to know cold to know its opposite, heat, right? You have to know heat to know cold. So life is like this. Everything is pairs of opposite. To know what happiness is, you have to know what sorrow is. To know what sorrow is, you have to know what happiness is. So it's like 2 sides of one coin. You cannot just have a one-sided coin in life. Some people their coin may be up one side for longer, but definitely everybody has 2 sides of, the coin. So this Titiksha says that life is not a bed of roses. It's telling you the facts of life, like Krishna did in chapter 13 with Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshana Darshanam. Similar like this, that life is not a bed of roses. Even the avatars went through, you see avatars' lives, if you read the Puranas, they're great teachers, because we saw in Gita how much the Pandavas went through, how much suffering. They're not avatars, but Krishna himself. Krishna's life, if you take, anybody would have committed suicide. People tried to kill him from birth. He was constantly being harassed by rakshasas and demons, and everywhere he went, there were beings trying to murder him. And he was, of course he's an avatar, but we can see nobody is exempt from painful situation. Lord Rama, as a king, he had to leave. He was banished to the forest for so many years and lived, wearing bark, and that type of life he had to go through, the difficulties he had to go through. So all these Puranic stories are great teachers that even avatars, even divine incarnations of the Lord cannot escape painful situations in life. But how do we handle the pain? That is the question. How do we handle this pain? How do we handle physical pain? How do we handle emotional pain? Because there's only 2 types of pain, right? Physical or emotional. So changing how we know as human beings is, everybody knows this, is I change I try and make changes to the conditions, right? That's immediately first reaction. If it's very hot, I want to make it cooler, which means I go into an AC room, or I get away from the heat. I don't need to stay and bake in the heat. I make changes to conditions. And if it's very cold, I go somewhere which is warm. I try and get something which is warm, or I put clothes on, which is nothing wrong with that. But suppose there are times in life when all these remedial measures, they're not obviously permanent. There are times in life where you cannot avoid unpleasant situations. Then how do you face? how do you face, if you keep changing external situations to make you feel okay, how can you keep doing that? How can you keep, that's what Shastra keeps asking, how can you keep all the time trying to change externals for your own comfort, for your own pleasure, for your own happiness? The Bhagavatam, which is the greatest, Bhagavata Purana, which talks about the stories of Lord Krishna, has a beautiful example of a man carrying a load on his right shoulder. He's carrying a shoulder. Remedial measures are trying to change things, conditions outside to make your life better. It's like transferring the load from the right shoulder to the left shoulder. So this is what Bhagavatam says. So the left shoulder starts getting heavy, you transfer it back to the right shoulder. So you're constantly carrying the load, whether you try, have it on the right shoulder or left shoulder. It seems like a little relief when you take the load off your right shoulder, right? But ultimately, you will still be carrying the load, right? So this is what Bhagavatam says. So how do I handle? Now we get to how do we handle situations. So the first thing Shastra is don't practice Dhamma in a very unpleasant situation. When you cannot change what is, see, this is very important to understand. Yesterday in Gita we discussed suffering, right? And I had a question, an email this morning. I woke up and had an email, and somebody had misunderstood. I'm going to clarify, but she had written to me that, oh, you said that we should just let people suffer. Let people suffer, and they have to go through their karma, and then she'd put in this George Floyd incidences, or if we don't talk up against such atrocities, then what's going, all of that. So I think we have to make it very clear. Titiksha is not letting yourself suffer, okay? It's not purposefully putting yourself in unpleasant situations and suffering and saying, I'm practicing Titiksha, I'm practicing Titiksha. This is not what is being discussed. That is why I said it is unpleasant situations which you cannot change. But cannot change means what? It's a fact. It's manifest. That is why that prayer becomes very important. Lord, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Give me the courage to change the things I can. So you have a free will. If you can change an unpleasant situation, then definitely Shastra never says you sit through it and suffer it. You can make a change. But the third line of that prayer is, Lord, give me the wisdom to know the difference between things I can change and the things I cannot. There are many situations that manifest in our lives which we cannot change. Coronavirus being one of them. This is not under anybody's power to change. This is divinely ordained. It is part of an order. It has come as we say ultimately as Ishvara Prasadam. We don't know. It doesn't feel like a prasadam, obviously, but as we saw, this is the best place to practice Karma Yoga. Yes, Lord, this is prasadam in my life. Yes, we're stuck in the homes for 2.5 months. We cannot see our family members. We cannot do anything. We're stuck, but it's prasadam. And I look at the positive side of it. Would I have spent so much time with Shastra? Would I have done so much Shravanam? Would I have spent time doing all of these things that I'm doing right now if this coronavirus hadn't come? And probably the answer will be no, because the world will drag out. There will be other things to do, which is totally natural, But again, seeing the positive in life. So Dhamma, the Shastra says, how do I practice? Unpleasant situation, I cannot change, qualified by I cannot change, that cannot be changed. First of all, I do not blow the steam. I do not react immediately. I don't blow my top and throw a tantrum because this situation is not to my liking, right? That is number one. This is Dhamma, practicing of Dhamma. So when something unpleasant manifests, this is the first reaction to it. No, I'm not going to blow my steam, but I don't suppress it either. We saw this. Because if I suppress things, there's psychological damage. I become a victim. That is also not useful for my growth. So both reactions, either suppression or expression, are both said not the way to go. Then what is the way to go? Titiksha is the way to go, which is a capacity to tolerate pain. Titiksha means the capacity to develop the capacity to tolerate painful situations in life. Develop that capacity to be able to say, yes, I'm going to face this challenge, however difficult it is God-given. And of course, this titiksha ability varies from person to person. It is very subjective. Some people have a greater capacity to tolerate pain than others. So we don't have a marker of titiksha saying you have to reach this bar. This is the A grade of titiksha, and this is a B grade titiksha. There's nothing like this. It's not a graded system. You have to see where you can go, how far you can go, but it's developing the capacity to be able to face up, put up with unpleasant situations, the ups and downs of life. And how do you put up with them? Sahishnutvam. So sahishnutvam is putting up with, and like we saw that heat in a hot country or cold in a very cold country. Physical pain also, the mantra to chant is what cannot be cured has to be endured, right? That is a very good mantra to chant. It's true. What cannot be cured has to be endured. And this is exactly what the Titiksha is. I have to go through this. That's when I said, that's what I explained in Bhagavad Gita. That is what I meant. This is exactly what we were talking about in Bhagavad Gita yesterday. There are certain things that we cannot cure, so they have to be endured. And that value of endurance, the value of capacity of toleration, to be able to tolerate, is what Shastra is talking about here.